Okay, before we start being medayik in the Torah, I just want to quickly review. The Rebbe said that the Iyun of Simcha is according to a mashal, and we've all been in this mashal where you have a circle of people that are dancing, and then there's someone standing on the outside of the circle, and you grab him in, and against his will, he doesn't really want to dance with you, and you bring him into the circle, and he starts dancing. He's still against his will, and then you force him to be with you until you get him to be b'simcha. So too in this Iyun of Simcha, when a person is happy. So the klal is when a person is happy, the Marish Chayr and Yisurim move to the side. Bigger Maila is to chase the Marish Chayr, confront the Marish Chayr, and bring that Marish Chayr and Yisurim into the Simcha in a way that the Simcha itself should convert itself and transform into Simcha, just like in the Mashal, the Ish Yachad Mibachutz transforms. So too in the Nimshal, the chasing and confronting your Marish Chayra and your Yisurim, your depression and Yisurim, you're able to convert and transform it into Simcha, just like the Mashal. And then the Rebbe says that's the Iyun of Sazon v'Simcha Yasigu, but Nasa Yogim Anacha, that the Sazon and Simcha will run after the Simcha and reach the Yogim Anacha that's running away, because the Yogim Anacha goes to the side, B'Shas Simcha, but when you start chasing it, it tries to run away. And when you chase after it, you will attain it, you'll get it, you'll bring it into the Simcha, Bal Karcha, and that's Pshat Sazon v'Simcha Yasigu v'Nasu. It will be masig, the running away. It will overcome them and convert them into Simcha. And the Rebbe says that is the Sitra Acha that doesn't want to be part of the Kedusha, therefore it's running away. But when you force it, you bring it into the Simcha Bal Karcha, and that's the whole Iyun of the Torah, which seems to be an amazing remedy that the Rebbe is giving us over here. However, we need to really understand how we use this Eitzah practically. And the only way to really understand that is when we stop being medayik. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask questions, and we're going to do this in 2 or 3 or maybe 4 parts of just questions and no answers. And then we'll try to connect the dots a little bit and see if we can come to answers. And I'm going to split this up into many components, short components. And here we go. The Iyun of Simcha. In the Iyun of Simcha, what does it mean, the Iyun, on the topic of Simcha? It sounds like he's talking about this topic that we all know about, but we don't really know about it. Next diak is on the word HaSimcha. Why does the Rebbe say HaSimcha with the Hey Yediyah? And we'll see later the Rebbe changes it. He says HaSimcha, and then he says Simcha. He changes it around. HaSimcha with the Hey Yediyah, what is he referring to? The Iyun of HaSimcha. Then the Rebbe says Al Pi Mashal. According to a mashal, usually the derech would be al derech mashal, lim mashal. What does he mean al pi? Al pi is, what's the words al pi mashal? And then he says shalafa'amim, at sometimes kishabnei adam smechem u'meragdim. And he says when people are happy and dancing, what is the difference between a person who's happy and a person who's dancing? So the pashtus, I don't want to give really answers, but one thing we could say is that smechem is something internal, and meragdim is an expression of a feeling that I'm feeling internal. And the Rebbe says we're talking about a situation where there's smechem and meragdim. The people, plural, bnei adam plural, are smechem and meragdim. So smechem is not enough, and meragdim is not enough. It has to be smechem and meragdim. Why? They grab a person that's on the outside. So we need to understand the Rebbe changes the lashon. Before he said bnei adam in plural. Wouldn't it be more apropos to say ben adam as I chayt from ben adam mibachutz? He changes it to ish mibachutz. Another thing is, why does the Rebbe say azay chaytvim ish echod mibachutz? He could have just said azay chaytvim ish mibachutz, like we always do. We grab a person from the outside. What is the ish echod? And next thing is that the Rebbe says mibachutz, that he's outside, shehu ba'atzvas Marish Chayr, that he's sad and depressed. Is everybody that stands on the outside of a circle of a chasana sad and depressed? He's not smechem amragdim, but he's not atzvus. He's certainly not depressed. Or is the Rebbe telling us something, that anyone who's bachutz, is atzvas amarash chayra, which brings to another question: is there a neutral zone between sameach and atzvas? Can I be not ba'atzvas and not b'simcha? I'm not crazy simcha now. I'm not really atzvas. Why can't I be somewhere in the middle? Seems like the Rebbe is saying that there is no neutral zone. I'm either smeichem u'meragdim or sameach, and I'm not. And if I'm bachutz, then I'm automatically in atzvas and marash chayra. Now, what's the difference between atzvas and marash chayra? Another question. Then the Rebbe says, "Umachnisim oisoi bal korchoi sheyasameach imoem gamkein." I'm sorry. Machnisim oisoi bal korchoi letoich mechoil hamerag. He brings him in against his will in the circle of dancers. So there's a few questions here. One question is, in the chaytfim, he doesn't say bal korchoi. There seem to be three steps. There's chaytfim, he grabs the guy. He brings the guy into the circle, and it's still against his will, and he's still not sameach. And then there's another place of machrichem haisai. He's forcing him. So the two latter steps, he mentions the word bal korcha, against his will. Why doesn't he mention chaytfim, also against his will? Chaytfim bal korcha. That's number one. Number two is when he brings him in, l'toich mechoil hameragdim, what happened to smeichem? Before he said Kish b'nei adam smeichem hameragdim, and now he says he brings him in against his will. L'toich mechoil hameragdim. What happened to smeichem? Umachrichem oisei bal korchoi sheyeh sameach imoem gamkein. So there's a few questions. How do I? He says, and you force him against his will to be happy with them also. How do I force him? What is the way that I'm forcing him? What do? I shake him harder? What am I doing that makes him forced? And then we have to understand, what is Shia Sameach? What do you mean Sameach Imahem? Is there something that the Rebbe is adding here with the word Imahem? And then the Rebbe says Gam Kain, which is also shver, because he could have said Machnizim is about Korcha, L'toich Mechal HaMeragdim, Machrichem is about Korcha, Shia Sameach Imahem. He didn't have to say Gam Kain, that he's forcing them to be Sameach Imahem. So we need to understand, this is the mashal. And before we go to the nimshal, these are, I don't know how many questions we mentioned, but we mentioned about 10 questions or maybe more. And we need to really understand what is going on here in the mashal. And every single word of the mashal is very, very meduyik. And we need to understand it. So let's start to open up a little bit, just to give us something here. The Bnei Adam that are smeichem and meragdim, where are they coming from? They weren't always smeichem and meragdim. Question one. Question two is, the Rebbe talks about a machayil hameragdim. There's a circle of dancers. Any circle has an internal part to the circle, the actual circle, and an external part to the circle. The Rebbe mentions that the external part of the circle is called bachutz, and that's the ish echad, that's bachutz. The circle, we know, is smeichem and meragdim, but what's inside the circle? There has to be a pnim to the circle as well. So perhaps we could say that the inyan hasimcha, whatever that means, this big topic of hasimcha, is in the center, or in between them, or both. It's the energy that's inside that is giving off an infectious energy to make them smeichem umeragdim. Yet, the energy only goes within the circle of Mechol HaMeragdim. And the people who are standing bachutz are ba'atzvus amarash chayra. However, when we grab that person bachutz into the Mechol HaMeragdim, he's still ba'atzvus amarash chayra. But now, we can be machrichem haisai, we can force him. How do we force him? With imahem. So perhaps we could say, that what is the imahim? Imahim means we make him to be with us. Wait a second. If he was ba'atzvus amarash chayra and we are b'simcha, how do we make him to be with us? In order to get him to be with us, we would have to show some indication that we understand where he's coming from. How do we understand that where he's coming from? Because we're coming from the same place. Because smeichem and meragdim, before they were smeichem and meragdim, they were also bachutz from the inyan hasimcha. And what happened? They came into the simcha, and the Iyun simcha grabbed them and made them smechem and meragdim. So when they grab the guy that's bachutz, they are telling him, they're communicating to him with their energy that we were also there. So now perhaps we can understand that the lashon is meduyik. Sheyasameach imohem gam kain. Also, how do I prove to him that I'm imohem? I am telling him, he feels my energy, that I'm also coming from the place of atzvas and marish chayra, and I got infected by the Iyun HaSimcha to be smechem and meragdim, and that's the machrichem I say. That's how I force him to be imohem. Okay, another point that we could say here is perhaps that the Rebbe is saying that ish echad mi bachutz means that he's lonely. Atzvus and Marish Chayra, and hopefully we'll expand on this in the future shiurim, that Atzvus and Marish Chayra is something that I'm alone with. Even if there's another person standing me outside next to me, that's also Atzvus and Marish Chayra, but his Atzvus and Marish Chayra, his vulnerabilities, his weaknesses, it's his own. And mine is my own. And perhaps the Rebbe is telling us, Ish Echad, Oimer Bachutz, is the fact that it's echad, that he's alone, and that's the atzvus and the marish chayra is that he's alone, and the iman is smechem and meragdim. It's plural. Everybody's smechem and meragdim. They're not alone. So perhaps atzvus and marish chayra, the shirish of atzvus and marish chayra, is the feeling of being alone. What else can we say over here in the thing? Oh, we forgot to be medayik that shilafa'amim, sometimes. What is the sometimes going on? Is the sometimes going that sometimes there are people dancing that are smechem and meragdim? Is the sometimes going on the chayt, sometimes I'm chayt of isha echad mebachutz when I'm smechem and meragdim? Or is the sometimes going on that when I grab the guy, that I get him to go into the toich b'chol and meragdim? And sometimes, or is there sometimes going that I'm able to force him to be besimcha imaim, or all of the above? With that, we'll go to the next shiur, Yetz Hashem.